Get an English lit major to do it because, well, they're not working.
It's May 2023. Welcome to the Photofocus Roundtable Podcast. Coming to you from Northern California, I'm a 360-degree photographer. I'm Ron Pepper. As always, I'm here with my partner in podcasting, crime fighting, Rob Morodo from Vancouver Island. And coincidentally, also from Vancouver Island, we have joining us this month Barbara Dobbyn. She is from Nanaimo, just up the coast, I think, from Rob, a professional portrait photographer up there. And we are going to be talking all about branding today. First, Rob, first let me say to you, welcome you in with a happy National Mushroom Hunting Day. I suppose that's what you're doing up there in the Great White North.
Is that actually a thing?
It is. On the day that this podcast comes out, it is actually National Mushroom Hunting Day.
Really? Like, are mushrooms huntable? Like, I thought
they were forageable.
I thought so too. You go out and you look for mushrooms. You don't. It's not hunting, right? It's like I don't go to my garden and hunt for my lettuce. Like,
you know, the reason I mentioned is right before the show, I had noticed that on the actual day of recording, it's National. Ready for this? International Kangaroo Care Awareness Day.
Ooh.
But we didn't have any Australians on today, so I just went with the mushroom one. To be fair, it's also other things, like good things, like National Child Helpline Day and National Day Against Bad Things like homophobia, transphobia, biphobia. Okay, those are good things. It's also National Linda Day. We should have had a Linda on.
Oh my gosh. Is it a Linda Day?
We're way off topic.
We are, but I will make sure that I take care of my kangaroos tonight.
Yes. Before we bring in Barbara and say hello, I can see her giggling over there. Before we bring her in, let's talk really quickly. Thank you to Photomatics for sponsoring. Photomatics Pro for high dynamic. Excuse me, I'm talking too fast. I got to relax and have fun here.
You got this, Ron.
High dynamic range photography. Rob, you and I use it a lot for real estate photography. Comes into play for a lot of the people out there doing beautiful mountains and sunsets and things.
You know, I was just thinking, like, okay, yes, you and I use it for real estate, and I've got a course teaching how to use it for real estate as well. But you know, if you go onto Facebook and join the Photomatics Facebook group, you will see how it is used all over the world to take beautiful pictures of architecture, landscapes, and even flowers and portraits. Portraits was an interesting one that I never thought I would use HDR for. But yeah, there's some really great stuff out there. So
that's one of those fun ones where you use it. There are ways to use it like on a single photo with portraits and things. But I was noticing, you mentioned the Facebook page. I've been noticing that a lot of Italians have, or at least photos from Italy have been being posted from like Cinque Terre, one of the great tourist destinations of the world. And man, every time I see those, I go, I couldn't get that good a photo when I was over there.
Right, exactly. So thank you, Photofocus, for sponsoring this, and thank you. Did I say Photofocus or did I say Photomatics? I said Photofocus.
I do that all the time. It starts with photo. What are you going to do?
Okay. Thank you, Photomatics, for sponsoring the show.
HDRsoft.com.
That's right. Okay.
All right. Hey, with that, Barbara, hello. Nice to virtually meet you. How's it going up in Nanaimo? That's one of my favorite names to say out loud, Nanaimo. It always has.
It is, isn't it? Hello. Thanks for having me. Nanaimo is going through an unseasonable, record-breaking heat wave. So, yeah, we're up above 30 degrees, which is not usual for me.
Which in Canadian is hot. In American, it's more like what, 100?
So no, 100 is like 40.
Oh, is it?
30 is still like a hot a nice hot summer day, but it's not gonna kill you, right?
It's hot for us pale redheads.
Yeah. I was just telling the story to somebody. I can't remember that when I was in Europe and it was really hot summer. I was glad that I did not do the conversion because it was 43, 44, 45 degrees of some of these days in summer. And I'm glad I didn't know because it's like 120 or something like that. It's crazy. So
we do the same thing. When it comes to winter, and this is especially when I was in Calgary, we would change it to Fahrenheit so it didn't feel as cold.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think that's a Calgary trick.
That is a Calgary trick. Makes us feel better about ourselves.
Maybe we'll name this episode, the show 2.5 Men?
Yep.
Yes.
Maybe we'll call this one 2.5 Canadians, because I'm you could consider me to be half Canadian because my mom was from there. So we're here to talk about branding, which just like one of the recent shows we did, Rob, you and I did with David Deal with the lawyer.
Yes.
Anybody that hasn't heard that, check it out, because if you're a photographer, you need to hear that discussion. I'm going to be question guy, and I think Barbara's going to be answer woman.
You make it sound like we're superheroes.
Like a superhero.
Yeah, right.
Well, we're a roundtable show, and we're one short because I hear there was a there was a little bit of a problem in the kitchen, but I don't want to make it an interview show. But we, if it kind of leans that way, that's okay, as long as we can kind of go back and forth a bit.
Definitely. So let's start off with our first topic, because branding. Oh my gosh, let's face it. Okay, I remember back in the 80s. Okay, so if anyone's listening and say, I wasn't even born then, okay, just listen. Back in the 80s, there was this thing called the yellow pages, and there was this thing called the white pages. And this is not any kind of racially charged thing. These are actually phone books, and people used phone books, and they would actually name companies like AAA Automotive or AAA Pizza or A1 Pizza. That's why there's so many companies that are still named, AA, AAA, whatever, because you wanted to be at the very beginning of the phone book so that when people flipped it open, you were right there. And that was pretty much the extent of what branding was when we were growing up. And then it slowly started where you started hearing things like McDonald's, and you saw that big golden arches, and that meant something, and you knew that every time you see the golden arches, you thought of crappy food, or little pom-poms out going around running away from a hamburglar. Do they even do that these days? Right?
I don't think the hamburglar's still around, is he?
No, or the Fry Guys, right?
I don't think so.
They're my favorite. But we started to get introduced to branding, but now we're bombarded with branding. Everything is branded. And so, let's talk about branding. What does it mean now?
Do you think we're being bombarded by branding because there are so many tiny brands? Like all of us individuals are doing our own branding of ourselves, and so there's like a million brands. Is that what you mean by being bombarded? And rather than kind of getting constant commercials by, Coke and McDonald's and all the big ones?
No, I think it's like this. It's like, okay, let's go. Have you done this? Where you look at somebody and say, hey, let's go for a Starbucks, rather than saying, hey, let's go for a coffee?
No.
Or, hey, pass me a Kleenex.
Yes, in that case, yes. Yeah. I know what you're getting at. Yeah. Get a Band-Aid, yeah.
Right. So these are brands. We're getting to the point where we don't know anything other than brands. Like, pass me a Coke. Coke is a brand. It's not a cola. Yeah. Nobody says, hey, can I have a cola?
Yeah, but when they ask for a Coke, they do not mean a cola.
No. They mean Coke. It can't be Pepsi. No.
No, there's a certain when I was in college, you'd go around, and one thing that would tell people where you were from and your culture you were from is they'd hold up a Coke or a 7-Up or something and say, "What do you call this?" Some people said soda. I used to say pop, but I've switched over to soda because I moved. And other people said, so if I was holding up a 7-Up, they would say that's a Coke. I said, but it's not. And they said, but that's just what we do. All sodas are Cokes. So if you go to a restaurant and you say, I'll have a Coke, the waiter is supposed to say, what kind?
Wow.
Huh.
So,
right.
So yeah, there's that was an old cultural thing. I don't know if that's still around. Maybe some young people can comment if people are still doing that, but
it's a sign of incredibly strong branding.
It is.
Right. I think it was like that was a Southern thing that everything was a Coke. I'm pretty sure. Can't remember.
Huh. It's like when I go to a bar and I ask if I can have a beer, and they're like, "Yeah, we have Budweiser on tap." I'm like, "No, I want a beer."
Okay. Yeah. The Europeans will just come in and say, "I'll have a beer," and us Americans say, "We have, what would you like? We have this whole spread of options," and they say, "Just give me a beer."
Yeah. So, Okay, so obviously branding is important. And I think the thing that we need to start thinking about is, actually, I think every photographer is thinking about this, is what do we do as photographers to build brands? What do we need to do? Do we need a brand? Do we need to be a brand? And what's the difference? So, Barbara, that's my first question to you. And take it away.
Wow. I think when it comes to branding, most photographers don't understand the difference between branding and genre choice to start with. So they're always like, oh, but I photograph everybody. And I think many photographers start out that way. They don't understand that as you get to know who you are, then your branding evolves. And once you actually run, not a shoot and burn business, most of them do not have branding from what I can tell. But professional photographers, the further you go in your career, the more targeted your branding becomes, because you get to know more about who you are and who you want to photograph and what that looks like. So,
yeah, no, it's true. And it's funny because as photographers, I'm sure you see this as well on Facebook, where it's like, oh, we'll create a custom signature logo for you and your brand. And it's like, is that the best you can do? Like, get a signature logo? Like, but
which doesn't even make sense for portrait photography. It makes sense if you're a landscape photographer and you want to sell prints, then having a beautiful signature on it. Absolutely. But
having an acceptable type of watermark that's a watermark and a signature at the same time. But Barbara, you were so it sounded like you're talking about developing a brand. Is that similar to developing the style of your work compared to, like, I think of branding as being creating a brand of being known as, I guess I would say, just.
I think it's a combination of both. So as people evolve, really, and you want to run your photography as a business, your business has to take on a vision of what you want that to look like. So, and the customers that you're going to attract are going to be impacted by your brand. So if you just want to shoot everybody, then you don't care whether somebody sees your work and wants high quality wall art, or whether they just want a disc of images, because you don't understand that your brand is what you're putting out there. So, yeah, it's
no, it's true. Like if we were to make the analogy or the comparison between the other major brands out there that we know. Okay, so tell me if any of these brands don't hit home to you down there, Pepper. So we know Starbucks. Do you know Tim Hortons?
Well, barely.
Or
but again, I have a little bit of Canadian sprinkled in.
Dunkin' Donuts, is that one down there?
Sure.
Okay, so if you think about coffee and you think about Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts, all of a sudden you know the difference between, or no, you have this image of the quality of the Starbucks coffee versus the Dunkin' Donuts coffee, right? And that's why when McDonald's came out with their coffee, they had such a hard time pushing it, because McDonald's it's McDonald's. It's cheap, fast food that really isn't good for you. So how can their coffee be any better? And so they came up with the McCafe to make it sound better. But they're still having a branding issue, because their whole brand is that cheap, fast, not good for you kind of image. Versus Starbucks, it's like, no, I just went for my yoga, my 40-minute yoga session, and now I'm going to go to boxercise. And I'm going to have my chai latte in between. It's a very different kind of feel. And so I think, Barbara, to your point, when photographers get, further down their careers and they get nicheified into their specialties, they do become known for that kind of thing, and that becomes the brand, right?
Well, I think the most interesting thing about how branding has evolved is it's often less about the product anymore, and it's more about an aspiration. For instance, Nike. When you think they're just do it, and you've got their swoop, like all I see is someone like on the starting line or climbing a mountain or just getting out there and doing it. It doesn't even matter what the product is, but you aspire to that. They've created a strong brand around an emotional connection with experience. And I think those become, especially with portrait photographers, I think that is a really strong direction for branding as we grow.
Yeah.
When we were doing this, I didn't really sit down and research what I consider branding to be. But as soon as we started talking about it, I realized there's a couple of different things here. And so I just punched up definition. And so I have two things. The one, the definition came up, which is pretty much what I would think, is it says it's a perpetual process of identifying, creating, and managing the cumulative assets and actions that shape the perception of a brand. Okay, that sounds normal to me, but we're talking about mostly individuals, or like in Rob's case, small company that has a consistent style, I think, right, Rob? Mm-hmm. So that means we're building up our brand, meaning our work, and what to expect if you hire Barbara, Rob, or Pepper. You're going to get, and I've been in that situation too, where I've been out on a location and we're talking with the client, the creative person, and we're talking about what to do here. And I love it. One time I literally heard, well, just like the stuff that we saw you did, which is why we hired you. so that was perfect. I go, got it. He was one of these guys, real artsy kind of guy. He's like, we're talking a little, the action, the crushed blacks, this and that, like all these kind of cool buzzwords. And so that worked in that case. So I guess that was, could I consider that part of my brand then, of that style?
Definitely part of your brand. You also have to take into account the experience you're offering your customers. Are you reliable? Are you delivering fast? Are you delivering large quantities? All those pieces become part of your brand. That's basically, it's your promise to your customer. It starts with the image they see, and it's everything else that they are looking at and saying, this is what I expect to get.
And are you saying yes and being accommodating without going outside of what you do, or outside of those things we talked about, those styles, or without selling yourself short? It's just, we run into that sometimes, right? When you're doing just way too much for what you're getting paid for it.
And different photography has different expectations for that. Some photographers can go in and just say, I'm doing what I want, and they can command that, and they can be a bit more diva about it, because they've built a reputation, which is their brand, about what they're going to deliver. And that becomes their personality, right?
Yeah. And then that consistency portion is so critical, that, you have a product, it's consistent, and that is the same every single time. Because, if I went to if I went to a Starbucks and all of a sudden I got something that wasn't normal, it doesn't matter if I went all the way from, Canada to Australia, I still want to have my same latte flavor done exactly the same way, regardless of where I am. And if it's not there, then it fails. And that consistency is so important. And I think that's why Starbucks is doing so well, is because they do have that consistency all around the world. You can go to Tokyo and have the same coffee. You know what? It's funny. I went to Japan around 4 or 5 years ago, and I speak Japanese. I went into the Starbucks and I couldn't, in North America, I like to get a wet cappuccino. What that means is that it has a little bit more milk, but not as much milk as, say, a latte. So it's like halfway between a cappuccino and a latte. And so it's called a wet cappuccino. And so I go to Japan and I'm like, crap, how am I going to order this? And so I'm trying to describe it to the lady, and I was describing it on to Japanese, and she's like, one wet cappuccino. Yeah, one wet cappuccino. And it's like, crap. That's the exact same thing.
If they couldn't get you what you want, you could go to Makudo Narudo and get coffee. Get kohi. Get kohi.
Right? At the McCafe.
I remember my Japanese. See?
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's like there was a Simpson episode, and it was hilarious, where Homer goes down to Mexico and he's like, hey, I'm going to have one of those things that's in a shell with some meat in it. And it's like, taco? It's like, yeah, that's what we call it. What do you call it in Mexican? Right? But it was one of those situations where it's like,
if you ask for a hard shell taco in Mexico, they'll laugh at you.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh yeah, we got a day olds over there. But
so what do you? So then, I don't want to. Maybe I'll just ask it in the most general way. Then, what are you guys doing for branding for yourselves? Rob is a small. For me, it's a big business. I'm a basically a one-man show. Because some photographers. Barbara, are you a one-person show as well? Or are you?
I am
working
a
with others?
one-person show, but I have subcontractors that I have working for
Okay,
me.
yeah, that's kind of the same thing. Yeah. So what do you do then? Okay, so you're within the three of us, the branding guru. What kind of process have you done when you're a little earlier? Let's kind of go chronological. When you started out, were you doing branding initially, or just kind of flying by the seat of your pants?
When I started, it was definitely by the seat of my pants because I liked everything I did, and I was still confusing branding with genre. Where as I evolved and I realized that there's a specific type of photography that I want to offer my clients, then I started to evolve and change the wording that I use. There's consistency in some of my images, but my part of my brand is unique and personalized portraits. So I don't have like an Annie Leibovitz style of portraiture. Mine's still very, I do a whole bunch of stuff for my clients. We have fun and we create a whole bunch of different genres, but my brand evolved into, I want to be a legacy luxury portrait photographer, which means I'm not inexpensive. It means that I offer products that are going to last the length of their life plus longer than that. So then the customer that I'm speaking to started to evolve and change as well. And every single decision that I make about marketing, because I do print products, I don't rely heavily on online marketing. I have print magazines that I can show people what I do. I have accordion cards that have images that I can put in their hands, because right then I'm telling them these are in print. They're not just going to be on your screen monitor. So every decision I make then supports the brand as it's been evolving.
Yeah, looking at your stuff, I can tell that you're really great at posing the individual to maximize something that I
Thank you.
And bow down to a bit, because that's not something that I'm that great at. I mean, I do it, but I think I'm normal. But some people you can tell do really well. And it kind of brings me back to what we were saying about being able to get, for lack of a better word, like say yes and do what they want, while saying, listen, I know this seems weird, because I having posed people, I tell them, look, you're going to feel a little silly here, but it's going to come out great. And so you get to say, look at my work. They felt silly too, right? Or maybe not all of them, depends on the pose, but depends on the body type, right? And the feel and what they want and everything. So I can tell you're really doing that. So I guess that's part of your brand, right? Is like, come in, let me do my magic, and go with it, roll with it. Relax.
Well, and for most of my clients, we do 6 to 8 different outfits, backgrounds, everything around it. So we always end up with some fun ones that are a bit more like dancing and just getting loose.
Interesting. So, you know what? Let's take a look at. Okay, so we've been talking about branding in terms of make your product from a genre into a brand. Make your product, your service into this cohesive, understandable set of things that is now becomes the brand of you and what you can do. But let's change it now and look at it and say, okay, so like we know that like Starbucks makes a coffee and it's the same coffee everywhere, which is their brand. But they've also done a really good job at making things like their logos, their websites, their stores are all crafted to look the same, and they're using the same interior design. All their mugs are the same. All their coasters are the same. Do they have coasters still? No. The sleeves are the same. The cups are the same. Everything is branded with some kind of logo item. Now, would you guys consider that important for photographers?
I think it depends on your type of photography.
Okay.
I think a logo, I love my current logo. It took me a long time to change from just using my name, because I think a logo has to really represent you and who you are. And I had my daughter design a large portion of my logo because I knew I wanted something that spoke to women in particular and to the femininity of what a lot of my images are. So she was able to draw something, and then I created a logo around what she'd created. And when I see it, it represents what I want my clients to look at and go, I feel like that's something I could do or that I might be interested in. But for years, I just had my name. And I chose my name, which I still use along with my logo, because I have a reputation in the community. I know a lot of people, they know who I am. When I gave up my corporate job to follow photography, I didn't want to start out from scratch with some random name that meant nothing to anybody. Everybody who sees my name knows this is Barbara. I've worked with her for years. I know she has great customer service. So there was a lot of goodwill attached to my name. So using my name was really important. But if you're a real estate photographer, your name isn't as important as the message that you're conveying to your client. So whether it's a logo or your name or a different name, I think it really depends.
It's funny. My company is called Calgary Photos, and obviously we started off in Calgary. And the reason I chose Calgary Photos was there's two things. It was me and my buddy John that were starting out the company, and we didn't want it so that one of us was on top. So we didn't want to be John Sharp Photography or Rob Marotta Photography, because all of a sudden it's like, well, if it's that, and if it's Rob Marotta Photography, and then you get John show up at your shoot, then you're like, well, you're not the Rob, you're the John. Like, who wants a John, right? And it sort of gets bad that way. So I came up with Calgary Photos. So it didn't matter who came; it was Rob from Calgary Photos that showed up. And the other part that somebody told me afterwards, years later, which was really cool, was they said, you know what? Not only is that good for SEO and easy to remember, and you got the domain name, but it's also good because when you're thinking about your exit strategy. And I thought,
exactly,
what's an exit strategy, right? And it is, if you ever want to sell your business, if it was Rob Marotta Photography, you know how hard it is going to be to sell Rob Marotta Photography if Rob Marotta is no longer there in that photography business, right? And Absolutely. The problem is, if I do that, then I actually give up my name. Like, there's a chocolate company that was founded in Calgary, I believe. It was called Bernard Callebaut Chocolate, and they were known very well throughout Canada. And then Bernard decided to sell his company, or I think he went through bankruptcy, and his company got bought up. And the problem with that was that Bernard Callebaut lost his name. He could not open up another shop named Bernard Callebaut, even though it's his own full name. He can't open up another shop called Bernard Callebaut Chocolates because that trademark name and his business got bought up in the bankruptcy.
100%. And I've considered that with using my own name as well, because my goal is, as I grow, when I get to the stage where I can incorporate, I will actually do a name change at that point, but I will have my client base already, and it's easy to let them know who I am and to continue growing through referrals and that side of things. But it's a little trickier. It
really is. Like, actually, you know what? It's funny. One of my good clients, he's a builder in Calgary, and his company's name is McKinley Masters Fine Homes. All right. The owner of the company's name is Mark Kwasnicki. And I asked him one day, I was like, so why did you go with McKinley Masters? Like, where does that come from? He goes, well, to be honest, it sounds a whole lot better than Kwasnicki Homes. Yeah. And the way that he said it, I was like, oh, I get it. You know what? I totally get it. Like, even...
You brought up the 80s earlier. Can anybody name the movie? Sir, did you change your name? And he said, why? Yeah, I changed my name. Would you buy furniture from Unpainted Huff Hines? I don't know if you recognize that one. An old Raising Arizona reference.
Nice.
Well, my name ain't Nathan Arizona.
Yeah.
This is one of those times where I wonder why I can't remember math, but I can remember some random lines from 80s movies. But you're right. And then to kind of round that out, I've always been like this nimble one-man show. Plus, my last name's Pepper, so that's kind of helps to have a somewhat memorable name. I had a college professor that had, I can't remember, a very exotic sounding name. because college for me was a long time ago, and my head is too full of Raising Arizona and other movie Monty Python quotes to remember her name. But she recommended that if you have a name that's memorable at all, use the heck out of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've done that. Plus, I want to be able to be that and just be, well, the brand. Like, I want to get to know the customers. I never want to have. This might sound strange to Rob, but I'm not the guy that's looking for a ton of clients where I'm shooting many houses every day. That's not the business that I want. I want to do less houses because I do other things as well. Mm-hmm. And so, and plus getting into all these legal entities like incorporating and things bring a lot of work along with it. Mm-hmm. And I always have to measure whether that's worthwhile or not. So we should ask David about incorporating next time he's on, the ins and outs, but because you don't want to get it from me.
No, definitely not. We don't want to provide any legal advice. This is not a legal podcast. We are not lawyers, and we have. That's right.
Just make sure you have insurance.
Yeah, we have like a grade 3 education in terms of what we can actually remember. Yeah, let's keep it at that.
So Barbara, did you take a lot of your style from? I saw that you mentioned the Portrait Masters. And so when I looked at that, and I thought, oh yeah, of course, I know. Oh my gosh, now I'm blanking.
Sue Bryce.
Yeah. As soon as I saw him, of course, I've seen her speak places, and I've seen her on, I want to say Creative Live, maybe, or something.
Yes, she started on Creative Live.
Yeah. Okay. So I was like, okay, so now I know where you're coming from. Yeah. Do they talk a lot about what we were saying about the branding and about? Well, I'll let you about what we were talking about.
Definitely some of it. There's more on posing, and I mean, I'll start with saying that I discovered Sue Bryce, and when I saw her, she already matched my style, which is what I fell in love with. I was the one. We have model and photographer meetup groups here on the island, and like 10 years ago, I'd show up with a big, huge Rubbermaid tub of tulle and flowers and dresses, and I'd be dressing people up and doing something different with the models already. So 7 years later, when I discovered her, I'm like, tulle, flowers, women, this is what I do. I already do this. So, it was a really natural progression for me to start learning under her platform. And when it comes to branding, it really is. It's about, she teaches, it's about your vision and your passion for what you're doing. And she teaches the guidelines, but it's always with you need to do what you love and what makes you fulfilled as a photographer and a person. So there's there's not a huge amount on branding. There is a lot on how to create marketing materials, but not really how to make it. I mean, there's ones about wording and how to be consistent with your wording across your brand as you develop it. It's grown so much. There's so many other mentors that are now teaching on that platform as well that it can become a little overwhelming if you're new sometimes, I think.
That sounds like some standard marketing type recommendations that we learn. Like I didn't go to school for photography. I went for hotel business. So really it's a business degree. And there's a lot of that. You always want the consistency in the marketing and things. And then I just went the whole other route, like Barbara and people that listen to us on the show by now know that I'm kind of all over the place and I'm just kind of me. And I had to, a long time ago, I had to accept, I've got some silly things, but that's what you get. And I just went with that. And so I don't know if I'm trying to go against authority or something. It's not really authority, but against the grain maybe. And it's always worked for me because I've always had word of mouth business. And people always ask me back, usually if I have one conversation with a potential client, it's almost always a sale. Like I don't do a lot of, once I get to that stage, I'm almost, I'm very good. It's just the contacting people in the first place that I'm lacking in. But I guess what I'm saying is you can kind of go either way. You can have that really drive your style and really have that expectation, or like if one man person, you really just take care of your clients and kind of get to know them and try not to have clients that you see once and Yeah.
Yeah. I should also add, I have a lengthy background in business. I've had my own business. I did my degree in business management. I've worked in retail stores. I have lots of sales in my background. So I studied marketing at university and branding. So
Nice.
it may also be that, I've always loved business. It's part of my DNA. So
I mean, you're one of those artists that does not lack the business side, like so many do.
nope.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure I am also undiagnosed ADHD, which explains a whole lot in my life.
Undiagnosed. Do we want to? So we wanted to bring into. So go ahead, Rob. Did you want to add something?
Well, I wanted to just jump into that last part where you had a nugget there that I wanted to dig up. You were talking about how you want to have the messaging and the tone of all the copy to be consistent. This is actually one of those things that I have had problems with my own websites and my own marketing materials, because unfortunately when I write very poorly. I'm a photographer. That's why I use 1,000 words of frame rather than writing down actual words with Grammarly, which I should probably really use. And because of that, all the copy on my website and my marketing materials didn't match. And sometimes I'd be talking in first person, sometimes I'd be talking in third person, and sometimes I'd be talking in a split personality kind of thing where sometimes I'm first, sometimes I'm third. It's like I'm going back and forth like it's a tennis match. And it was awful until I found somebody to actually redo all of my copy.
Yeah.
And that was one mistake that I had. So if anyone out there, if you've got a website, if you wrote it yourself, have somebody else proofread it. If you can, get an English lit major to do it, because, well, they're not working. So
get a Hollywood writer.
Right? Exactly.
Currently on strike at the time of this recording.
Exactly. So have them do that. And then here's one of the other things that I found out. There's so much that goes into, like, let's face it, a lot of us are marketing now using our websites. So having that same branding in terms of your messaging is important. Making sure that it matches the product that you have developed, which is your service. It's you. It is your brand. That is what it is. So make it so that message is conveyed clearly onto your website with all with the right photos, with the right messages. And logos are great. I spent a couple $1,000s on developing my logo and getting the right font and finding out what the right spacing is. And for anyone that didn't know this, the space. Okay, so we know what the space is when you're spacing your lines, right? Like single space, double space. But the space between the characters.
That's kerning?
That's kerning. Yes. Yes. I had a friend of mine she had
Trivia
this
master.
Yeah, she had this hoodie and it said Kern right in the middle where the zipper was to try to separate the letters. It was hilarious.
I love it. That's
right?
cute. Oh, that's a really good nerd joke right there.
Right? I loved it.
So
have all that. Pay for that. It's worth it. You do it once and you're good. Just like having a really good headshot.
Yeah.
Get that and use it. Don't.
And then I have a question, and this is because I'm in that position. I did a bunch of branding. It's been about, I think it was in 2010, and I did a bunch of. I got current what is my current logo and stuff like that, and it's looking old. So I need to redo, and I've just been putting it off because, frankly, I don't do a lot of marketing for my website really. But I've been putting it off. So is like a dozen years, not the headshots. I can update my headshot myself. Mm-hmm. So that's it's not like all the real estate agents we meet, is it? It's I can keep that current, but I think, what do you guys recommend for going in? I would like to get like a Squarespace designer to do an update. And I'm trying to think about, putting together a budget of some X thousands of dollars and what I'm going to expect. But I can expect them to redo the text as well. Mm-hmm. It sounds like, which I hadn't thought of. perhaps redo logo, but there's a good argument to keep that the same, even if it is looking a little outdated. There's still a good argument for that consistency, right?
Well, I'd challenge, is it looking outdated to you or is it looking outdated to your clients?
Yeah, frankly, I don't mind it. It's just my name with a little bit of stylizing with a P, but like I just asked for well, it doesn't matter, but it's, to me, I still kind of like it, but I just think it's been a while. So I don't know. That's a good question. Nobody else is going to care, right?
You know,
that's the thing. I mean, sometimes
it's easy to throw on a business card. It's clean. So
that's what it comes down to. Does it act? We tend to spend so much time building things that sometimes our clients don't care about.
Yeah, that's the way I'm leaning, is just an update, because I want to update the work that's on my site more than anything else. There isn't that much text anyway, and I'm sunsetting what my old. I used to work under Panorama Network, I called it, because I was the panoramic specialist, and I still am, but that's not like the future. So I'm kind of sunsetting that and just using my name. And so I am kind of been thinking this stuff through. And so, yeah, if anybody listening, or you guys, anybody has ideas or really great Squarespace, what do you call that? Not designer, but what is it?
Someone can edit your Squarespace website for you.
Yeah, do something a little unusual instead of a template, you know.
But here's the thing, Pep. I'm gonna jump in and say, you gotta put a lot of effort into that one brand. And Barbara, just like you, it took a long time to get to your brand with, your daughter drawing, Here's the thing. I believe that a brand is going to be on everything. So you want to make it absolutely perfect. Think of it like a tattoo. Okay? You're not going to go and find some guy on Fiverr and say, hey, get me a tattoo, right? Like, that's probably not going to be something that you want to show off to people afterwards. So if it's for your business, I would recommend finding a designer. Like, you can use Fiverr and get ideas. Like, there's guys out there that for like $10, they will give you 50 different logo ideas or sample logos.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing that just to get an idea, and then taking it and saying, you know what, I like these 8, and I want to make a really kick-ass logo. But that's when I like to go to the local art schools and just put up a poster and say, hey, I need a designer to do this. Who's interested? Show me your portfolio. And you get to meet some of these really creative people, and sometimes they'll take your idea and make it even better. And that's what I absolutely love about it. And students are great because, they're eager. They actually have some of the latest techniques there because they're just learning it and they're in the groove right there. So that's one thing that I would definitely recommend. And Pep, even you, like, if you go to your local, well, you're in the Bay Area, there's got to be a web design school or a digital design school down there.
Oh yeah, all over the place.
Yeah.
One of the schools is supposedly one of the bigger real estate owners in San Francisco. Is one of the art schools.
Really?
So that's how big it is.
Yeah. So I would definitely try
that. So then there's the other way around is, okay, we're acting like we're just kind of free flowing, but we did have some topics lined up that we wanted to talk about this. And the third one was, now that we've been talking about what branding is and what we do and everything, but what about Barbara has something that she does is selling that as a product.
Oh, selling the branding.
Yeah.
So
because So I have personal branding clients. So real estate agents, lawyers, finance, people in finance. So people come to me because they need headshots. And often they come because they just think they need a headshot, which is usually not the case. So in order to sell them on personal branding, it's up to me to educate them on what they need. And so I go through a big process on that. I become more their brand strategist almost, but it's just about their image. So I'm not working on their brand, so their website colors or their text or font, it's all about their images and what those convey. And so I'll explain my expertise to them. I'll showcase that by asking them a lot of questions about their business, their goals, their strategies, and about their clients. And if I have the opportunity to pre-research that, I will also do that. Sometimes they think I just need a headshot, but what they need is a headshot to show their business. They need additional images for their website, for e-newsletters, for billboards, for different purposes and different people seeing them. But they're also building themselves as expertise to hit the speaking market. So they have to actually have different images for different purposes. So I get to explain that to them, showcase that, and then show them how important it is for them to separate themselves from their competition, show them what more success looks like, how having a better cohesive brand across all of their platforms will actually make them more money, how changing their profile picture every couple weeks, that one image gets more hits than anything else that people post. You change your profile picture, everyone you know sees it and they like it and they talk about it. They say great image. It gets more.
Right. That's a really good simple one. You're talking about mainly Facebook, or what other platforms does that strategy work on?
It still works on LinkedIn as well. People like seeing people. And if they know you and you've put up a new image and it looks great, people are going to comment on it. It's also, I think, and I can't quote me on this because I don't know how the algorithms work. When you put up images of yourself in those particular places, I think they actually get shown to more people. There's just no way to explain why you get 90 likes on your profile change and yet your birthday gets, 88. So anyways, made up numbers. Because
they, if you have a business page, then they reduce who sees it a great deal. But maybe what you're saying is that the profile picture is more free than that, more goes to most people.
Goes to more people.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Oh, good. There's a good tip, Rob. That's like a Rob's gem. That's a Barbara's gem.
Right. That's fantastic.
Yes.
We were doing when Rob and I were doing the real estate show, I would always say it's Rob's gems because he had all these great ideas. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Barbara.
Yeah. No, it's all good. But then showing them how those engagements are going to get them in front of more clients, which will in essence make them more money. So if I can tell them all the benefits of branding and how it's going to make them more money and more successful, it helps to make them more comfortable with the process. And then, of course, I'm going to showcase them all the things that I do to help them have the best images and how to make more money. So we do wardrobe consultations. We do impact of color theory. I mean, so we're telling them this is what we're going to do to build their branding. This is the sales process, right? Posing expertise, expression coaching. We offer professional hair and makeup so they look amazing in their images. We do all the professional retouching. So educating them on first why it's important to them, why they need to have a consistent image across all of their brands or all of their platforms, how people see something once and they don't remember it. I think it's like 15 to 18 times before they'll even remember having seen it. So you don't want to have the exact same thing up all the time. You need to have new information about you and who you are, but consistent being shown in front of the same customer over and over and over again.
What other kind of customers do you have besides real estate professionals?
Lawyers and
I've got people in finance.
I want people out there to get ideas,
Bookkeeping clients. I've got stagers. One of my staging company women is one of my biggest cheerleaders. She's always telling every single person that the images I made of her are the best ones she's ever had in her career. So makes me feel good. And then, oh my gosh, can I think off the top of my head? Lots more. Yeah. I've had people new in their careers as well. People just coming out of university who are stepping into brand new careers, sometimes even in the sciences, and they need a starting headshot on their LinkedIn because they want to look more professional and more adult. This is a big one. I had a dancer come in. Yeah, a dancer come in and she wants to become a dance instructor. She's passed all of her exams, but now she doesn't want to be seen as a child anymore. She wants to be seen as a instructor of dance. So creating, branding for her.
No, fair enough. I've got a videographer that is on my team, was on my team. He's gone full on commercial videography now, but he's got that Ralph Macchio problem. Like, do you remember what Ralph Macchio? He's
Karate Kid, absolutely. I'm
right?
an 80s girl.
Right? So when he did that, playing a 16-year-old kid, he was 24. And
he still looks younger than Rob Maroto.
Right? And so I keep on saying, like, it's a Ralph Macchio thing where, you look like you're still 16, and he has that problem, and I can totally understand that. And it's funny that we're talking about this, like, with photography and having that same consistent image and messaging. We tell that to all of our realtors as well, because we have some realtors come in and say, "Oh, you guys are expensive." It's like, no, we're actually top of the line. We've got really good quality here. And they're like, well, yeah, so I'll just use you for my really good top end listings, and then for the cheaper ones, I'm going to be using this discount, guys. I'm like, no. As soon as you do that, you are not making a brand. Your brand is, you are a realtor, you are selling a service, and that service has to be at a certain level, regardless of if you are selling $1 million home or a $5 million home, or the home of the child of the owner of the $5 million home who's trying to sell their $180,000 trailer park thing. And yes, I said $180,000 trailer park thing because that's where we're at right now, right?
Canadian.
Yeah, we're not exactly, well, yes. But let's face it, we are at that point where things are expensive, and they need to have the same kind of look. So I tell my clients even, no, you need to build your brand. Here's how we're going to do it. We are going to take the best possible real estate photos for each of your listings, and each of these listings is going to become a past project that you have already done. Keep that in your portfolio, and when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, what have you listed? You can pull out everything, because there's nothing that you should be ashamed of showing. At all.
When he's trying to win a listing from that $180,000 property, the next one, is that person going to say, "Oh, I'm only going to get this mediocre, bad photography," or "How come I can't have the better photography?" That's what they're going to say. So, and hey, let me just I harp on this a little bit almost every time we get together. Don't worry about charging what you think you should charge, because everything's out of control. So I know photographers, and Barbara, I don't think I mentioned this ahead of time or during the show, is that a lot of Photofocus listeners are, many are in that somewhere, amateur aspiring to go pro, or someone who does like a side gig kind of thing and thinking about going full time. We've all been there, and and a lot of listeners are there. So that's why I like to talk about this a little bit, that when you go to the grocery store and you see the prices skyrocketing, and then you go out to wherever you go and you see the price, we're all seeing it. So don't feel bad about pricing appropriately. Don't feel bad about it at all. Stand tall. Maybe you have a term for this, but stand tall, deliver your message at your price confidently, assuming that you can back it up and do it. So I always want to throw that out there, because I'm in the Bay Area. So I'm sure we started higher, but it's still going higher everywhere. And it's getting a little bit offensive. When I take my kids for food at a regular old place, it's getting offensive. And so I always remember that when I make sure that I upsell people, and, happy to send an invoice. I'm do it confidently, right?
And it's all about educating and servicing your clients. People who don't charge enough go out of business. They're not here next year, so you don't get consistency. Yeah. And I think that's the most important part of that.
Yeah. And if you undercharge, you're always chasing for more and more and more, and then you're not paying as much attention to each one, and it's just a spiral. And so just think about all those things, and this is just for other people listening, if you're wondering about that, get together, do some meetups, get together, see what other people are charging, go to look at other people's websites. And people, please list your pricing on your websites. Come on, don't put this thing. I mean, you're welcome to certainly say, custom projects and all that kind of stuff. I get it, but please put it out there.
And and it doesn't really matter, because as soon as you put your prices out there, people will be happy to decide, right? Like
some won't continue, but they weren't going to buy anyway.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And what I find funny is that when, like what you were saying, don't keep on competing on price and don't start lowering your price, because the problem with price is that if that's the only thing that you can compete on, well, there's always going to be somebody that's going to be able to beat you on it. And that means that it's just this easy way of going to zero. But here's the other thing that you got to understand. We're talking about branding, right? So if you start with your pricing going downwards, guess what? There's another company that does that, and they have big yellow signs that says rollback. And if you want to be that company, by all means, be that company. But I would rather be the high-end department. Wait a sec. All the high-end department stores are going under, aren't they?
Yes. Oh my god. Oh my god.
However,
I don't know if this means. Oh, go ahead.
Here on the island, the crafter has elevated their products to the point where you go to any craft fairs, farmers markets, it's some of the most expensive products you can find, and everybody's buying it.
Yeah.
One of the good sides of the pricing going up is that people are feeling the pressure to give the quality. And I notice it because something I'm into. I've always been into the restaurant business. That's my first business, my first career. And yeah, in this area, you're going to spend $15-ish US on a cocktail in a lot of places. A nice cocktail, but oh my God, are they nice? It is no longer just shaking up a quick margarita. They do them in a beautiful, all fresh, all beautiful. So that's the good side. So to put it into photography terms, is that when I look at my competition around here, I'm not even the highest priced, but I'm also not. Rob can attest to this. I've got things that I'm still ironing out, and so I'm happy to see that there are people charging they charge for every single thing where I don't really do that. And it ends up being more. And I'm happy to see that because there's room for me to grow in price. And I don't know if I would follow the advice I once got from Scott Bourne, who is the started this whole Photofocus thing a long time ago. When I was having a meal with him one time, and he said something, I can't remember what I said about how much business I was doing or something. It was a certain amount, wasn't amazing. And his advice, yeah, I hear him.
Sorry.
And his advice was double your price. And I'm like, double? Like I'm not ready to double, but it did give me the confidence to, maybe this was his whole point, was it did give me the confidence to go and relook at my pricing and raise them. So we talk about pricing pretty often on the show, and it's a big deal, and it's just become a bigger deal with the insane inflation that no one could predict, I guess, except some people like me that have been seeing this coming. So anybody else in anything on that pricing stuff before we?
Well, I just wanted to add in, I had a client going into real estate reach out to me to get headshots, and I told her my pricing. She said, "Oh, that's a lot more than I expected." And I said, "What I want you to do is go out, look at all the other realtors online, and tell me if you can tell the difference between the cheap ones and the ones who invested, and which realtor do you want to be." Again, it's educating your client to what the difference is, and once they can physically see the difference, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, like if you go in, you look at the realtor list, and then you see the one person there wearing the prom dress,
Yeah,
that there's a problem.
I had a company reach out to me a couple of weeks ago from Vancouver. They're like, "Oh, we're looking for quotes on a couple of realtors on the island, and we want to know if you can match their style." And I sent back, I said, "I can match the backlit white background, no problem, but there's like 12 different styles of lighting on everybody else. So decide what you actually want your clients to have," because it was inconsistent and you could tell it wasn't great. So
yeah, no, it happens.
Barbara, since we have you here, I'm just I have a couple of questions, and I think other people might be wondering the same kinds of things. So it's an audio show, so I can't really show like your website here, but when you do a branding, someone hires you to do a branding package, whatever you're calling that. I call that. I scrolled past that part. What do you, give us a rundown of what you deliver in a typical situation, like as far as a package of photos, if there's anything else, and what kind of categories you shoot for.
So I photograph my branding based on the experience to start with, and creating the knowledge and the expertise of creating a brand for them. So the branding and styling consultation that I have with them is probably the most important part of our entire engagement. We sit down for an hour on a Zoom call. I walk them through, I've got like a 50-page document that I share on the screen with them. And we talk about clothing options, what suits their particular field of business or not, color theory, how color is going to impact how the client sees them, and deciding which ones make the most sense for them. And then we talk about all the different places that they can do their, put their images, what that looks like. We show them, we provide a variety of different formats for them. So we format for banner, we format cutouts so they can pop it into different backgrounds. We give them a really lengthy period of service before we even get to the photo shoots. So when they show up,
I was thinking that when I do headshots, and when I even had my first headshots, whatever that was, I remember it was such a wonderful feeling to have a headshot for many situations. Levi Sim shot a whole bunch of headshots for me, and I had, if it's going to be on a black background, boom, white background, boom, a different thing here. If it's casual, if you wanted to be smiling and almost laughing, boom. If you wanted to be serious, so I had all those things, and it was very freeing. So maybe that's a little bit in the direction of what you're talking about. So you would have that consultation and then sit down and kind of put together, let's call it a shot list for lack of a better term, maybe in some locations that fit with an outfit that fits.
I do mostly studio. So yeah, I'll do a few on location, but most of what I do is in studio.
Sitting in the beautiful, well-staged living room. That's almost studio, right?
Almost. Yes.
Nice.
So it's about teaching and educating them about everything first. Once they pick out all their clothes, and even when I have somebody coming in to do just a single headshot, I still have the same consultation with them, because people will show up in button shirts that are too small. They'll show up in things that just don't work at all if you don't have that consultation and teach them about what's better. I had a woman show up with 2 shirts, and this was a while ago, so I learned my lesson. Headshots, there's nothing simple about a headshot. If you show up in a shirt that's too small, it's really hard for me to fix that in post. And then the second shirt you have kind of goes across, but you don't have anything for under it. So then so servicing my clients up front so that they get the best images that they can at the end it's paramount, like that. And that's my brand. My brand is the experience. Like when I built all the words that describe my brand, I think I have 10 of them under experience. And then I have like 5 or 6 under product and 5 or 6 under my other, I have like the actual images themselves, so.
I think is wonderful. I'm getting two main things for me, and I think other people too wouldn't have done like a Zoom type consultation for just a simple what is considered a simple headshot by other people. So that's great, and everybody's using Zoom now, so we can do that.
Yes.
And I think I'm going to have to put together. I'm going to have to think about my package that I'm going to call branding as well, and do. You said 2 images included, but it seems like you might want to encourage more.
I do. My packages above that are priced. I hardly ever sell just the 2 images that come with the personal branding. Right. And most of my women have the hair and makeup attached to them, and a lot of the men do as well. We don't do hair and makeup; it's men's grooming. So, and it's been great for men who come in with tattoos, because my makeup artists look after making sure their tattoos are perfectly visible, not dried out or anything like that for their images. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, great work. If I didn't say that before.
Thank you.
So where are we? We are going pretty long as we do.
Yeah.
So let's start to wrap up here. And as we say, cue the music. And shall we do our picks this week, this time?
Sure.
Rob?
Yes. And so one of the things that we've done lately is we have started to put our YouTube picks on, because it happened to be before when you had a question, people would say, hey, let's Google it. But now people are saying, let's YouTube it. So in this section, what we're doing is asking ourselves, and our guests what your favorite YouTube channels are. So, by the way, let's start off with Barbara.
Well, I have to say, my career in photography started following Scott Kelby. I bought all of his books on Photoshop. I bought all of his books on taking photos. I attended some of his retouching seminars. There was a couple in Vancouver way back years and years ago. And I still look to him for a lot of basic guidance on the general photography. He's a guru, and I love his YouTube.
He's one of the good one of the good people. And there are a lot when you start getting into, and I'm kind of talking to listeners, of course, maybe more than you guys, of course, but when you start getting into going to conferences and things, there are a ton of really, we call them good eggs, that are happy to help you all, spend their time with you. I mean, some of the biggest names out there, and Photoshop world is full of them, and Scott Kelby's ahead of that, and so he's one of those good people. I always thought.
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but I always feel like we'd be able to sit down at the bar and have a drink, just like old friends. He's just that personality. Yeah,
I don't want to start naming names because there's too many, but I kept having that experience at Photoshop World, because at least they used to. I haven't seen it since COVID, but they treat it like a bit of a show. I mean, it's a real show. It's like they kind of present as rock stars on stage. Literally, they'll do stage shows. But when you're sitting down and walking around everybody's so down to earth. I'll go second because mine is off topic, and partly because Rob, you're not doing your job. I brought up Screencrush because I've been going down this rabbit hole watching videos about Guardians of the Galaxy. Rob did not bring up Marvel on this whole hour talk, so I really appreciate that. I'll go see a movie and then I'll watch the videos about the darn movie, and I just think it's one called Screencrush, and I just think they do a good job of being nerdy, not too nerdy, funny, not too funny, all those kinds of things. I think they really nail it. So if you want to just do something about, like, it could go for all the whatever shows you're interested in, probably like a Star Wars, Star Trek, stuff like that as well. So that's my off-topic pick this month.
Nice.
Go ahead, Rob.
And then obviously, you know what, I like to stay on topic, but sometimes I don't. Like, I use YouTube for two things. Number one, sometimes your brain needs a reset, right? Like, you're working on something, and it's like, for I look at real estate photos all day, and I get clients saying, hey, can you please change the outside view to look more like this? Can you please change this? Can you get rid of that? Can you do? It's like, oh my God, I feel like this is what an AI must feel when it gets all those like requests, right? Yeah. And they're sending me all these like I'm an AI, and so every once in a while I need a break.
Yes, I can.
Right? I'm gonna charge you, but yes, I can, and I need a break. And what I do is I go to YouTube, and there's one guy named Anatoly, and if you haven't seen this guy, he's hilarious. He is a professional weightlifter, power lifter, and he pretends like he's a janitor and goes around the gym, and there's these big guys, like, you know, doing squats with like 500 pounds, and he just goes up and is like, oh, can I clean here? And he'll just lift it up, clean under it, put it down, and walk away. He's the funniest thing, but it's amazing what he can do. So that's what I do for my mind reset. But for everything else, there's one called PiXimperfect, and I gotta say, I love this guy.
Yeah, I like this guy. Yeah,
me too.
Yeah, I saw his video on the new remove tool in the Photoshop beta, and I immediately had to download Photoshop beta to use the remove tool, and it is fantastic. So if any, Yeah, if any of you are real estate photographers out there and want to know, hey, what's the simplest way to Photoshop myself and my camera out of the mirror? This is the tool for you. Like,
really?
Literally one click and bang, your camera's out. And if your client's reflection is in the oven or the microwave because they're looking around the corner to see what you're doing, you can Photoshop them out with one click as well.
What if your camera's in the mirror, but there's a plant that's kind of half covering the camera and half not covering the camera?
It will get it. It will get it.
I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to see this.
Yeah.
I am always excited and always disappointed by these stupid selection tools. Actually, I didn't say that. They're getting so much better. They're amazing, yet never all the way there, right?
No. But this one's pretty darn good. So once it goes into full alpha, this thing's going to be a game changer. But even in beta, it's so much fun to try. So check that out, try it out, have fun. And for anybody else out there, we're going to be wrapping up the show. If you have questions for us about Photoshop, photography, anything, really, ask us
branding,
anything.
Sales.
Right? Send it to us at Ron?
questions@photofocus.com.
Perfect. And we will see you next time. But before we go, Barbara, where can people find you?
They can find me on Vancouver Island, barbaraann.ca. Barbara is Barbara, not like Barbara Streisand, and then ANN with an E on the end. .ca for Canada.
Perfect. And we'll definitely put that into the show notes there so that people can find you.
I'll have a link in the show notes. And Rob, are you? Don't you have a course?
I do have a course. It's a lovely course, and you know what? I gotta say, it is so much fun because not only do I have the course, but I've got a community Discord about the course. So I actually get to talk to my students all the time, and the questions that come in are so bang on. It's helping everybody. So if you're interested in having not just a course, but an interactive platform where you can actually come and ask questions and actually get the instructor to respond, well, here I am. So the course can be found at robmaroto.com.
And with the questions and any ideas for subject matter as well, remember, Rob and I and Barbara, we do know more than just real estate photography. And we don't know, at the same time, we don't know all kinds. So we're happy to reach out and ask people to come on if you want. If there are questions and subjects that are surrounding things that I'm very happy to say I'm not an expert there. So we'll ask them on. So send us all those ideas and we'll see what we can integrate in. And if we... you can find me at ronpepper.com. I'm not really promoting anything. I'm doing this for mostly labor of love and fun and getting out there and learning things. So, but you can find me there, Bay Area photographer. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for the Q&A show. Questions at photofocus.com. And with that, let's get out of here. Say, go out, go shooting, and let the music play us out and just say adios.